All righty, what is up, people? I'm just going to spread the link real quick. Actually, I'm going to edit the title to Natural Farming with some general updates. Of course, it's made for kids, YouTube, but you don't have to check not made for kids so you don't ban me for some stupid reason. All righty, I'm about to spread the link. I hope you guys are doing fantastic. You know, things are looking very interesting already. I did make that recent video talking about how I think it's kind of stupid if you're still in the concrete jungle, you know, living day to day, paycheck to paycheck, and not, doing anything like, what do you call it? Making your way into a community, finding the people that are like-minded and starting to work together, starting to move together and starting to reevaluate and see what's important in life, right? Is a big house, is all the wealth in the world, 6 cars, a ton of gold, all these things, what you really need? Or is what you really need right behind me right here? Right? We're not at the stage where we have all the fruit trees we want and we can eat fruit endlessly, but that is the goal. Narayana Reddy, an Indian man who's an avid follower of Fukuoka, the grandfather of natural farming, Masanobu Fukuoka, he was really big. Let's see. He was really big on what do you call it? Talking about how we need to be eating things that are close in proximity, right, and in season. And I put this on a short recently, but the idea is that if you eat things that are close to you, there's a mechanism going on there where you're exchanging information to that which is, to your environment that's near. So your code, your DNA, your information is making such that, or is creating links and codes such that you better interact. There's some cars passing by. So that you better interact with your surroundings, right? So it is ideal to go and look at this beautiful, isn't that amazing? It's almost like dates, but it is the most ideal thing is to go out and pick things near you, right? And at the same time, things that are in season, because then you have the astrological and the celestial, as above, so below connection, right? Whereas if you're eating something that's been stored for a long time, which we're still doing, by the way, since we don't have all the fruit that we want on the property, nor do we have a property that we know for certain that we can start doing the clay pellets. Because right now we're in the process of saving seeds. Isn't that beautiful? Look at how many Loquats seeds are in here. That's crazy. But with the whole natural farming, the idea is humility, really. The idea is that we don't know for certain how nature works. We can kind of get a theory of it, right? We can kind of, pretend like we know which direction nature is going, but nature's flow is completely unpredictable, right? It's not something that you can how do you say, with the ego, with the intelligence, try to, force to learn, right? It's like observation. Observation has no method, right? Observation is always new. So you can't develop a curriculum or a, how do you say, a formula or a, how do you say, or a certain cultivation or practice when it comes to observing nature. And this is why I know for sure that natural farming this is where it's at. This is the code, right? Because instead of trying to dictate and force to nature what should be grown where, right? Instead of trying to pretend that we know how nature works, right? What do? You collect these seeds, and Fukuoka says ideally over 100 of different varieties. This is just one variety, right? This is just the Loquat that I've been picking in other neighborhoods and stuff. But ideally, you get hundreds of different varieties of seeds. You put them in clay balls, and then in the land that you're going to stay, right? Because that's the thing with agriculture, is you got to think longer term. You can't think so short term, right? You got so in a safe land with good people, that's the most important thing when it comes to community, right? You got to start sowing seeds. And how biblical is that? Because the whole idea of natural farming, the whole idea of Fukuoka's work was that you should have enough time to eat, or you should have enough time to spend time for yourself. All you should be really doing is eating and sleeping, right? It should be a breeze, right? Outside of harvesting, reaping, and sowing, right? You should let nature do the work. Right now, when it comes to agriculture, we think that we need to micromanage everything. We think we got to, think for nature, think on behalf of nature, but nature isn't thinking at all, right? So when you throw some loquat seeds, or let's say green manure plants, which revitalize the soil by dying off and as the word says, green manure, putting the nitrogen back into the soil at the same time creating a moisture layer, right? So fruit trees, green manure plants, other ornamental trees, various kinds of beans like garbanzo beans or vetch, or different things like this to break down the soil. You mix again 100 different varieties and vegetables too, and then you just start throwing it out. You just start sowing the seed, and then you let nature decide where things should grow. Now, with this idea, you can reverse deserts, right? With this natural farming, right, with letting nature decide where she wants to work the seed, right, which seeds she wants to take, you can reverse deserts, right? This was what Fukuoka, after he started traveling, came upon, was he started to realize how much the soil was being depleted across the world. Through what? Through chemical farming, through fertilizers, through deep plowing and deep cultivation, deep tilling, right? Through all of the modern, philosophical approaches to farming or to taking care of nature, right? Arose, especially with the Rockefeller foundations and stuff, talking about the green revolution and, building all these dams and, supplying all these tractors and endless water and all this kind of stuff. We, in fact, ruined the land, right? Instead of letting nature take care of it, we instead were thinking of profits. We instead were thinking of scientific innovation and progress and development. We were thinking of all these things, yet the last thing we did was ask nature, what do you need, right? And in asking nature, what do you need, she gives us exactly what we need. That's how she works. You see what I'm saying? So yeah, and let's just quickly go over the fact that, you shouldn't be eating meat. You shouldn't be eating carcass, right? I'm not going to judge you. I've come across many people that are still doing so, right? Not in this community, but when we go to market days and stuff, we meet people and stuff. I'm not going to judge you, right? I'm not going to, sit down and have a conversation with you about how your anatomy is closer to a gorilla than it is of a cat, a feline, or a dog, a canine, or or bovine, a cow, which is mostly herbivore, right? I'm not going to necessarily sit down with you and have that conversation unless I can see that you're not so parasite programmed. But if you're parasite programmed, right, it's really hard to get this message across that your hands don't have claws, right? You don't have incisors. You don't have those huge, large canine to rip apart flesh, right? You don't have a long enough or a short enough intestine to be digesting those carcasses, those meat, the dead energy, the non-electrical energy, nor do you have 7 stomachs or a very large, intestine system in which you can, or super, big grinders in which you can process immense amounts of vegetable matter, right? We, if you look at our hands, have the hands of a gorilla, right? And the hands of a gorilla, which has no claws, is perfect for peeling fruit, right? It's perfect for picking fruit without damaging it. It's perfect for the highest electrical, material that exists in the world, the highest electrical nutrition that exists in the world. Yes, herbs are great sometimes when you cook it in tea. That's the other thing. We shouldn't really be cooking that much either. But with sprouted garbanzo, as I learned with yaki, sprouted garbanzo, sprouted quinoa, arrowroot, teff, amaranth, there are certain grains that are better than others, that are alkaline forming, right? But really, this is the highest energy that exists. That's why in Operation Lighthouse, right, what are we aiming to do? We're aiming to create places, right, with natural, in conjunction with natural farming. We have some effort farming going on too, right? We have some conventional methods of modern agriculture going on as well, where we're forcing things a little more because we have to right now. We're not at the ideal land. We don't know yet. There are certain things that we have to consider before really hunkering down and starting to sow these seeds. But ideally, the end goal and the aim of Operation Lighthouse is, again, what is a lighthouse? A beam of electricity, a beam of light that shows you the way out of a deserted land or being lost at sea, right? Which I'm equating to now as eating things that you should not be eating things that are anatomically inconsistent, living a life that is so unnatural, living a life that's so disconnected with nature, that is so disconnected with God. Now, I'm not claiming to know God, right? Every day I'm questioning and wondering and, and doubting and being skeptical and learning on, right? In humility, because if I say I know it all, like some, pastor or something, that's definitely not God. I can create all these concepts of God, but really I don't know. So that's the reason why natural farming is so revolutionary, because it's starting from a point of saying, I don't know. Nature knows, right? Man's knowledge has created all the suffering in the world, right? Man's unnatural thoughts has created all the hardship in the world, all the difficulty, all the dis-ease, all the stress, right? All the difficult living. If man just stopped thinking for a second, he would sow the seeds and reap the seeds, or reap the fruit, and let the things grow. Let nature do things naturally. And in doing so, he would heal himself of all the illness, which is delusion, which is illusion, right? There doesn't have to be any sickness unless, we convince ourselves of it, right? It's a black magic spell, eating the wrong foods, watching the wrong things, all of these kinds of things. We don't need to take part in it, right? And in the same sense, right, when the illusions come to an end, that is the aim and the goal and the movement of Operation Lighthouse, right? Is a beam of light, an electrical beam of light, full of minerals, full of nutrition, full of joy, right? Full of love. When I'm picking these fruits off a tree, every time I'm just so amazed. How is nature so giving? How is nature so plentiful? How is nature so magical? It's taking these small rocks in the ground, right? The soil, all this kind of stuff, and it's creating these balls of gold and sugar, fructose. Again, what our body is made to eat, what our body is made to digest, right? It doesn't even require insulin, right? A lot of my family members before, when I was trying to go help my grandma who's on a bunch of pharmaceuticals, they were telling me that fruit is going to give her diabetes, that she should be, eating these canned foods or these dead carcasses, these dead foods, these non-electrical foods, because this electrical food is going to kill her because it's too sugary. Give me a break, folks, right? How big is a gorilla and what is the majority of his diet, right? How big is an elephant? What is the majority of his diet? How big is a rhino? What is the majority of his diet? We don't need to be eating carcass. This is a misconception. All the protein that you need exists here, right? All the amino acids, all the building blocks that you need exists here. And to be more accurate, Yaki says every single amino acid protein, chain exists within an apple. So technically you could live off of apples, but as we know, Muhammad went on a date fast. I'm sure as hell Jesus wasn't eating carcass, wasn't eating dead animals, right? If Jesus was a real man, that is. But anyhow, again, we come back. Operation Lighthouse, what is that light? That light is the sunlight that gets converted in the form of, with the, photosynthesis and the iontophoresis with the roots, right? Well, Operation Lighthouse is about giving a chance for children mainly, right? Because it's not just about us and using all the resources for us. It's about creating a place in the world where children can be free, live naturally, and have an abundance of fruit. And all they have to do is sow seeds in clay bowls, right? And reap the fruit after 2-3 years and just watch all the greenery come back. I mean, what more is there to do, folks? This is why, to me, everything else seems like a waste of time. To me, all I want to do is learn about natural farming. All I want to do is find a fertile land, is find a land with a good water source, right? And at the same time, have the established base where we can have an HQ with the Adamastera community, plus, right? Because this is more of a temporary place where we get together. And it's like a nexus point where all the families will fertile land where we can start on. It could be this land too. We don't know yet, right? That's our strength. We're very open to change, and we're open to taking things as the universe gives to us. We're not so rigid and stuck, right? That's right now Adamastera's strength, right? But eventually, after finding a place and reversing the area into a fruit forest, right? Through these methods of natural farming, we want to go further on and start to reverse deserts, because that's all I want to do, folks, is go into these desert lands and these deserted lands where man has, basically with the topsoil runoff with the rain and the lack of the green that exists, the lack of the root systems, all this kind of stuff. In places where man has destroyed Mother Earth, I would like to bring back Eden. Again, that's the root of Operation Lighthouse. Bringing back an area where all degeneration can come to an end. Again, I don't think there is a greater work than that. And it's not my work, it should be everyone's work. Right? As stewards, as guardians, as frugivores, it is our responsibility to create a future where there can be an absence of mucus-generating acidic acidosis causing foods. And from then, with a plentifulness of these, highly nutritious fruit that are full of all kinds of magic, that are in season, that are in proximity near you, saving all the seeds, continuing, having fun doesn't take much thought at all. That's the best part of all of this, right? Reversing the deserts and bringing fruit back is the most, like bringing the vegetation, bringing the moisture, bring the rain back, as Fukuoka was saying, that the rain falls up from the earth through the trees, that the reason why there's no rain is because there are no trees, because everyone's cutting them down. Everyone's, not managing the soil correctly to have all this topsoil and humus runoff, right? I lost my train of thought there. But again, rain falls up, not down. We have to get that out of our minds, right? The trees bring up the water from the roots. They pump up the water, right? And they, what do you call it? They channel the water back down after pushing the moisture up. And at the same time, Narayana Reddy, the Indian man who's a Fukuoka follower, was saying, the greatest sin of all is to cut down a tree. That's the greatest sin of all. The trees are the gods, right? He was saying that the trees, my trees and my kettle are my God. And that's how we should be treating this earth, folks. The livestock, the cattle, you know, and the ecosystem, and, you know, it's permaculture, but it's even further than that. It's natural farming, right? The sentience, both in the animals and in the cellulose and the fruits, vegetables, and, you know, the green, the trees. This is where consciousness is, right? This is where joy is. This is where fulfillment is. This is where our future is. So, you know, that concrete jungle where it's all asphalt, and when you throw seeds, nothing's going to sprout, right? It's so biblical, right? You want to be in places where you throw a seed and it'll sprout and grow into a lush, dense forest, right? That's where you want to be. You know, the land of illusion has no life in it. So that's definitely somewhere you don't want to be. Anyhow, here, let's see. Give me 1 second here. So yeah, I think I'm gonna delve into like the natural farming just a bit more. Just what I've been absorbing and seeing is that some of the most important things is to make sure that your soil is always covered, right? That we have this idea of plowing and tilling, which basically degenerates the soil 5 to 10 years back, right? It creates more work for Earth to revegetate and return the soil to how it once was and full of life. You know, we have to keep things covered at all times, right? Whether it's with green manure plants, whether it's with trees. And what this will do is, again, create that shade, which keeps in the moisture. And when that moisture is also kept in with, you know, not this intense sunlight, right? And actually at night, it stays warmer too. It has like a greenhouse effect. What that will do is create a system such that the microbiota, the microbacteria and the, you know, all this kind of stuff, the life in the soil will be able to rejuvenate and increase. And that's the other thing. All of these great natural farmers were saying, you shouldn't be tilling, you shouldn't be plowing. The earthworms should be the ones that are, you know, working your soil, right? But the roots of these legume families, the roots of trees, they should be the ones working the soil. You shouldn't be going unnaturally with all this effort and, you know, tilling and plowing and, you know, doing all these kinds of things. We're actually regressing, you know, and trying to use all this technology to, again, force the earth to, you know, meet our needs, when in reality, in the long run, what's the best option? And yeah, I found this other Greek guy. I forgot what his name was. Panagiotis Manikis, right? I've been posting him on my Telegram, Facebook, and Twitter. But this guy, you know, he's another one of Fukuoka's living examples where, you know, he got to a barren land. All he was doing was doing throwing these seeds in clay balls. And eventually he has this lush forest with over 120 different kinds of fruit trees, right? With birds, with insects, you know, with you know, great soil, great humus, you know, not much topsoil runoff with that, you know, nitrogen loss. You know, that's what we're about, right? It's not seeing the insects as bad, right? It's not seeing the birds as bad. It's not seeing the weeds as bad, right? It's seeing that everything nature does has a reason and a purpose. So rather than working against nature through the use of, chemicals and, all these unnatural methods of trying to control pests and all this kind of stuff, we should be creating an environment that is so densely, rich, that, the insects naturally are kept at bay. The birds naturally, keep the insect population at bay, all these kinds of things. We should create an environment that thrives on its own. That is the key. And this is where Masanobu Fukuoka, brings in the concept of do nothing farming. It's not lazy farming, but really it's about letting the things that you can't control be done by nature. So that's where we should be, that's the trajectory to which we should be going. Because anything else is really futile. So there's that. What else did I want to talk about? Yeah, so there's the soil, not using fertilizers, because again, in the end, if you have the right kind of ecosystem with, building bunds, for instance, to keep the water in, to keep the moisture in, having shade, having that green manure that constantly revitalizes the earth. Let's see. You wouldn't need these fertilizers. Oh, that's another big important thing, is we shouldn't be needing to bring organic matter from outside of the area that we're in. So that's one of the key things of natural farming too, is that we should be finding things in the area, like for instance, not burning all the branches and the leaves, composting them, using manure of the livestock that's in your land, et cetera, et cetera. After the beginning stages of actually getting the humus correct and the soil to be over 2-3% humus, the topsoil to be richer and more, have a lot of life in it, we should really not be bringing anything from the outside in. So that's another big thing that all these natural farmers are working towards or have already achieved, like the guy down in Greece, like Mr. Reddy in India, who's now passed, and like Fukuoka at his farm, who's also passed. So, yeah. But yeah, I just wanted to relay some of that information that I've been collecting and storing, and I've been really data mining, because again, it lines up right with Krishnamurti, right? Saying that, stop looking at things in such a discriminatory fashion. Look at things whole. And when you look at things whole, you're not going to be constantly, trying to take control over small little parts. You're not going to constantly be trying to, force things. You're not going to constantly try to think up solutions that don't work, right? At the end of the day, you can't do anything. And from that point on, you allow nature to thrive, because it's not actually what you do that helps nature, it's what you don't do. That's what the whole approach Fukuoka was doing, was what if we don't use chemicals? What if we don't plow? What if we don't weed? What if we don't, irrigate so much? What if we don't do these things, right? That conventional agriculture is doing. So really what he was doing was bringing us back to indigenous farming methods. Man, that's a big thing, right? So really what natural farming is about is returning to our roots. It's returning to the ancient methods of cultivation, or really no cultivation at all, right? Having a farm, having a garden with no method, right? Without having to think so much about, I need to get this amount of produce by this time so I can profit this much. No, letting nature do it for you and think for you and provide for you, right? Because imagine there's probably scenarios, in a natural farm where you're getting the exact nutrition you're deficient in, because nature is responding, is reciprocating, such that whenever you pee, whenever you work with the land, whenever you ground, whenever you exchange electricity, it's already forming the electrical frequencies that are needed to regenerate your soul, to regenerate your body, right? I'm sure that's happening all the time in nature, and we don't even know. So imagine a place where, right, where everything is so naturally cultivated that anytime you need something, it's given to you. Instead of having to go to a market, instead of having to go to a supermarket or whatever it is, right? Instead of having to order food in bulk as we're doing right now until we get to that point, right? That nature would be so plentiful and so providing, and it already is. It's just right now we live in a world that's so selfish, right? We live in a world where you have to go find a tree that's unmaintained and unmanaged to get some free fruit, right? We folks need to create a world where you can get free fruit everywhere, because only then will we actually be fulfilled, right? This pursuit of pleasure and this pursuit of happiness is taking us nowhere, right? This is it. This is the answer. This is what no one wants to look at, is the anatomically correct food and anatomically correct living. And it's not just about melanated people, right? This is what I think Yaki is missing, is that yes, the indigenous diet, the organic diet, the natural diet could be a more melanated directed thing. I don't doubt the fact that perhaps melanated people will lead us back into, the organic ways. But this indigenous living is for everyone. It's not just for melanated people, it's not just for white people, it's not just for Asian people, it's for everyone. Living one with nature is for everyone. And we don't have a choice, again, really. This is the only way to do it, is to find the way, right? Find the way away from the unnatural methods of living, which is finding a way to live without any method, which reduces down to live, right? Everything else is effortful and is death, is dying. So, yeah. Enjoy the fruit. By the fruit, you will know the tree. By the tree, you will know the fruit. So, yeah, I'll just reiterate that is my dream, right? And there's nothing outside of this dream that I want to spend my time to. Is, again, creating a place where there's abundance. There's no need to worry about money. There's no need to worry about, oh, I got to get to school on time by this, by this curriculum, by this control system, by this prison matrix, by this military or hospital style enforcing and thinking. I want to live in a place where I can just climb a tree and spend some time in nature, listening to the birds, listening to the insects, and living in harmony. I want to be a part of something that, creates a place where people who can actually confront themselves and who they are can escape, or, better word than escape is, I guess, deal with disharmony and come out the other end of the tunnel, right? At the light at the end of the tunnel. When it comes to Q, when it comes to all this, at the end of the day, we got to do the work. We have to, create these Edens, these safe zones. We have to create these gardens. We have to sow and we have to reap, because that's the most biblical thing I can think. So, yeah. Freestyle lives, eh? Yeah, and again, just think about how easy it would be if, as you're sowing these seeds, right? As the right kind of seed is sprouted in the right area, because you're not, deciding or choosing, because it's done at random and you're letting nature choose it. The right kind of seed sprouts at the right kind of climate. It might die out in 2-3 years if there's lack of water or something, right? But then that wasn't the right type of species, right? That wasn't the right type of zone for that thing to thrive, right? And we will find that in the future, when we create lush areas, that we will change the climate. We are the climate change, right? What we do is changing the climate seriously, but just not how they're talking about it, not how they're creating all these fossil fuels and all this kind of story and trying to dominate oil prices and, all this kind of stuff, right? And actually, before I was getting into that, I was getting into irrigation. Imagine a time or a place where you don't even have to go water your plants. Because again, that the seed would be sown in the right place at the right time, at the right location, such that, it's in perfection. And because it's in perfection, you don't have to irrigate, you don't have to fertilize, you don't have to do all these things because it's being done on its own. Like I was hearing examples of these great natural farmers talk about how, with transplants and stuff, right? With trees that are already grown, they're kind of foreign to the environment, right? And at the same time, they've been spoiled, just like a child, right? They've been spoon-fed because you're constantly watering them yourself, right? Whereas a seed that's grown from a sprout without any help has to find its way to the water, right? So it has to work. It has to, exercise. It has to build its muscles. It has to build its own intelligence, right? So in this way of not compensating for the intelligence of the plant, you get the strongest plants. And they also talk about, these natural farmers also talk about how, eventually you'll see that your plants start to get more wild, right? They start to revert their genetics back to the original form so that, there's less need for pesticide, there's less need for insecticide, there's less of a pest problem, right? The tree's naturally producing its chemicals to keep things out or invite things in. At the same time, it's healthier, it's more nutritious for you because these foods, that are in the original form, right? This is why Dr. Sebi's knowledge was so crucial to the world. And now Yaki's championing that, right? The original foods, right, are so much more, full. There's so much more, they have so much more content, right? And they're really simple. And so that's the other thing is natural farming is simple. And because it's a returning to simplicity, there's not all these different kinds of schools of thought. There's not all these kinds of practices that you must follow, these methods. There's not all this kind of effort being put in, like, again, watering, fertilizing, adding chemicals, pesticides, all this kind of stuff. There's no tilling, there's no plowing, none of this. The tree grows in the adequate location as the sowing has been, after the sowing has been done. With the green manure plants that have also been sowed, the soil keeps rejuvenating and getting better, not worse. Fukuoka, his farm was the soil structure was getting better and better every year, whereas his neighbors that were using these chemicals and plowing, their soil fertility was getting worse. The biomass and the activity, the life in the soil was getting less. But again, in a natural farm, it gets better because nature works off of herself, right? And keeps adding on. And another thing that Paul G., the wood chip man, the Back to Eden gardener, also talked about, how nature only covers, right? Outside of bores and stuff, right? Nature doesn't dig. So it's just constantly laying the organic matter over and over and just creating more layers and more layers and more fertile soil, and it just continues. And so, if you look at these natural farms, whether it's Narayana Reddy, whether it's this Greek guy that I recently found, whether it's Fukuoka, man, their fruit trees just get better and better and better and better. There's no sense of, soil or microorganism die-off. It's just constantly positively reinforcing. So, yeah. So yeah, imagine a situation where you don't have to irrigate. You don't have to do all these back-breaking efforts of trying to keep your plants alive. They just live because, again, they've grown with the mother, not with the aid of man, not with the thinking of man, not with the degenerative activity of man. Rather, with man aside, they are thriving. Because that's when nature... That's when nature does best, is when man steps aside in humility and allows her to flower on her own. right? And here and there, as a steward, as a guardian, man can shift things and man can move things, but in general, right, what man has done has just gotten in the way of nature. So yeah, and what does that come from? That comes from a soul, a being that thinks separate from nature, that doesn't communicate with nature, that doesn't listen to nature. That if we actually loved nature, again, we would be in this role as a humble, modest servant, right? As a master, not some kind of a, what do you call it, a slave owner, right? Not some kind of a dominator, but what? Wu Wei, or as Fukuoka goes into, Mu, right? It's the path of no path. It's no force at all, no will, no choice, no thought, none of this stuff. That's when love, that's when communication happens, because you're asking nature, you're humble on the ground, right? Kneeling, bending over and saying, what is it that you need, right? Not what can you give me, right? But what is it that you need? And when you say, what is it that you need to nature, she just can't stop giving you things. She just can't stop filling your soul, filling your life with the fruit, with the sweetness, with the grace. So yeah, I invite you to think that maybe when the effort stops, the paradise begins. That the land of effort, the concrete jungle, the land of the matrix, the land of illusions that we've created is full of effort. And because of that, it's full of money, because it's all oriented around what? Artificial value. And at the end of the day, all this artificial value will crash, will have no use, or it will only be used to those that want to live a godless life, an inorganic life. To those that are part of the organic electric, alkaline electric race, right? Artificial value has no meaning. What has meaning is this to me. Again, what has meaning is life, not death, right? What has living to me, what has meaning to me, what's living to me is electricity, is minerals, iontophoresis, right? That's what living is to me. And at the same time, freedom, right? Freedom means an absence of control. Freedom means an absence of authority. Freedom means I don't look at the tree as I'm better than it, right? And in not looking at the tree as I'm better than you, again, arises the need and the necessity to treat it with respect, and at the same time, let it thrive, let it show you, let it demonstrate the way to paradise, let it demonstrate to you the way to Eden. Because that's the thing, folks. I'm not, I don't know, maybe I'm already communicating to the trees, but I'm not like talking to them yet. I've heard some people can actually like listen to trees and stuff. I don't think I'm at that stage, but that's where we got to go to. The indigenous farmers, which is what natural farming is about, returning to your roots, returning to the ancient ways, returning to the indigenous practice, is about communicating, living, listening, loving nature as if it is yourself. Right? The idea that nature is different from yourself, the idea that you are not your inner nature, the idea that you are separate from that tree is your thoughts. Without you thinking, there's no such thing as you separate from the tree. There is no such thing as I. The whole idea of the self-centered existence, the whole idea of the ego is an illusion, is a construct developed by thought and time. But you know what's timeless? Observing a tree. Observing a mountain, picking fruit. That's without time, because it is like, that is love, Love doesn't know time, right? That's why if you're impatient, it's not love. So, these kinds of things, right? Where do I want to flow in this freestyle? Where else do I want to go? But yeah. So yeah, if you know any, if you guys know any, seed suppliers, hopefully heirloom is best, would be better. Or if you're collecting seeds yourselves, help us out, reach out to us, because we're going to need a lot of seeds soon. At the same time, if you can help us with air support, That's the fastest way to revegetate a desert, is to fly over with these planes and just spray these clay balls down, right? And just, Fukuoka says within a matter of like 2-3 years, you can just change an entire freaking ecosystem. Go look at the, here, I'll show you on this share screen. Go look at the, what do you call it? The video I posted recently. Come on, how do I do this? It's about this Greek dude, and he's like the most alive dude. Is Narayana ready? Rest in peace. He's past Fukuoka. He's also past, rest in peace. But this Greek dude, Panagiotis Manikis, you know, if you look at his video, you know, right now, you know, his farm right now, right? Him, how he's planted these seeds, how he's rotating these crops, how he's just, you know, letting things be free right now. So yeah, that's what we want to do everywhere, right? And I really have my eyes on the Sahara. I like Azores because it's, you know, so fertile because it's volcanoes. But I have my eyes set on Africa because that's what Dr. Sebi was trying to do. He was trying to breathe life back into Africa. He was trying to electrify, remineralize Africa. And unfortunately, Africa kicked him out and didn't let him do it. So all of us, we need to go and Wakanda forever, you know? It's not just about melanated people, I'm telling you, right? I care as much as a melanated man does about his homeland, Africa. You know, I probably have a greater responsibility to Korea, but that place is so lost in the matrix. I think I'll go after Africa, okay? But anyhow, so in this Portugal region, in this, you know, Southern Europe region, like the Mediterranean, plus Africa, you know, contact us. If you have air support, if you have someone with an airplane that can help us sow these seeds, if you know seed suppliers, right? If you know land, right, especially near water and stuff, so we can start green belting, and like if there's a stream here, we can start planting trees out towards the stream and just revegetate that way, like a great divide, right? And just imagine just, you know, like a desert, and there's like one stream coming through, and we start planting like, you know, 100 different varieties of vegetables, green mulch, what do you call it? Green mulch vegetation, fruit trees, ornamental trees, whatever it is. And we just slowly expand out that way. Oh, that would be so crazy, right? But again, the fastest way to do that is with airplanes, is with seeding from the sky. So if you have contacts, seed suppliers, landowners, you know, people who are giving up land, like someone from Israel contacted me about how they're like rehabilitating in uninhabited fruit like orchards and stuff like that. Those kind of contacts, you know, again, someone with air support or whatever it is, right? Contact us, because that's what I want to do, and that's what we want to do. We want to travel the world and regreen this deserted land that we've been treating so poorly. And so again, we want to bring love back into this loveless, decadent, violent world, because that's the only thing we got left to do. What's more worth than that? Is your matrix job more fun than that, right? Is your, you know, petty little existence, your selfish existence more fun than that? Like, what's better than this? What's better than having fruits everywhere? Nothing's better, right? Nothing is better than Eden. A car isn't better than Eden, right? A big truck isn't better than Eden. You know, having 6 private jets isn't better than Eden. You know, a boat's pretty nice. We want a boat for sure so we can travel to Africa and stuff, but a boat isn't better than Eden. You know, your wife isn't better than Eden, because, you know, your wife would be happier if she was in Eden, all these kinds of things, right? Nothing is better than Eden, right? Eden, it should be our only objective, our only goal. And I'm bringing to you guys, it's not completely original, but it's coming from original place of love, right? Natural farming, Masanobu Fukuoka, indigenous ancient ways of farming. That's the only way we're going to get there, is sowing seeds randomly, but also with maybe some control, and regreening everything, returning everything to how it once was and how it should be. And how do we do this? In complete freedom and without any authority. Who is authority? There's no authority in nature, right? The bird ain't better than the bug ain't better than the bird. The tree ain't better than, the river ain't better than the tree. It's harmony, right? There's no me versus you, it's together. So stop looking at the insect eating your tree as that insect needs to die, I need to spray it with something. Think in terms of there's something missing in my environment that I need to fix, right? It's just like allopathy versus naturopathy, right? Allopathy is concerned with the superficial cover-up of the symptomology, of the effect. They don't go to the root of the cause, right? That's how agriculture works today. Instead of going to the root of the cause, the lack of biodiversity, the lack of humus, the lack of the soil, the lack of life down beneath, instead of looking at the fact that our lands are barren, uncovered, and tons of minerals and stuff are being washed away by the water and the sun is burning everything up, right? Instead of looking at the whole, right, we just want to look at that insect is eating my fruit, so I'm going to spray it. That's thought versus love. What does love say? The entire environment is screwed up, right? We need hundreds, thousands of varieties of trees. We need thousands of varieties of bugs that can eat the other bugs, right? Every one, there's 20 good bugs out of one bad bug, like bug that's harmful to your plant, right? And oftentimes the bad bugs are only eating the plants that are weak, again, that are malnourished in some form, that it has its defense mechanisms down, that are hybrids, right? So thank God these bugs and these insects and these pests are, bugging us. Even the bug has a place. Even the bird, the fowl, right? Even the bird that eats your fruit has a place. The cow has a place. The goat has a place. Although I hope we can go back to like less hybridized cows. All of these things in nature has a place. So how do we find its place? We realize that we are out of place, that the root cause of the degeneration on earth is what we're doing. No one else acts out of intuition. No one else acts out of cosmic law. No one else disobeys anatomy. The only race, the only species that decides to step out of the rules of cosmic arrangement and, for instance, eat a carcass or use chemical fertilizers or, do this witchcraft, pharmaceutical practice, right? Or drinks alcohol. The only people that live outside of the dictates of natural law is human beings. Isn't that so sad? No animal goes against natural law. No animal lives outside of its intuition. It's only domestication where that takes place. So again, folks, this journey is about being undomesticated, being untamed, being unleashed. Release the Kraken. It has to be released. This is the return back to freedom, right? Back to that which is not controlled. So again, that's the only thing we got to do. I got to move these fruits out of the sun. So we can have those fruits for a long time. But anyhow, I may do one more of these. This is actually the perfect time because a lot of the members left today to the market. So I have some alone time to myself. That's why I'm doing one of these live streams that I haven't done in so long. I'm sorry. But I'll do more of these and crank these out. So today I just wanted to, give a few of those updates that we're on a land, the Adamistar community. We're exploring different options in different lands, right? But right now, this land that we're on right now, we see it as kind of a nexus point for, we have 2 families coming, 8 kids, on their way. We're going to have 10 kids soon. That's the other thing. The children, I think, are going to free us, right? We think it's the opposite way around. We think we have to free our children. Rather, I think if we let the children go free, they're going to give us the codes and the magic and the indigenous and the ancient roots because the children are the ancestors, okay? They're the ancestors that have been born, and it's just a matter of conditioning them and ruining them, right? That's what society's trying to do, and control them and put them in school and all this kind of stuff. The children have the codes, you know? So we got it all backwards. But anyhow, so we're at the Edemester land. We see this as a nexus point, the port of the port of Galilee. We see this as the area that the stars are being sifted and coming together. We're deciding who is ready, who is not. What type of people do we want on our expedition team? What type of people do we want on our home base, on our HQ, on our headquarters? And then slowly we will start, after we amass the people free of the matrix, right? Or that are, that truly love freedom and love themselves. Then we go and see other lands. We go and see other fertility. We start to sow the seed. We start to reap the fruit, and then we expand and we go. Like I want to do the whole Sahara. We got to reverse the entire thing, because that's our responsibility. We did it. Like this is not just light words, folks, right? It is our responsibility to regreen the earth, right? There's nothing more important to do than to bring Eden onto the earth, because we fell from Eden. Okay, that's our responsibility. Even though that whole Eden story is also kind of Jewish rendition and a little bit of a psyop there going on too, if you look into it. But anyhow, metaphorically and unrelated to the Genesis story, right? It's our job to reverse the unnatural practices, the unnatural thoughts that arise from a greedy human desire, right? It's our job to put desire in the right place, because when desire is in the right place, regeneration can happen. When I can, curb my parasitic needs to eat carcass, or to eat a bunch of grains, or to, or bad grains, for instance, or to eat things that God didn't, intend for me to eat an immense amount of vegetables without any fruit. When I can face the fact that I'm a frugivore, when I can face the fact that, anatomy is anatomy, when I can face the fact that there's nothing more important than trees, there's nothing more important than the animals, the bugs, the birds, there's nothing more important than this, then again, we can take full responsibility, not live separate from nature, and start to reverse this shit that we've created, right? And start to do everything, and start to internalize everything and do things without the need of the matrix. Because right now, yes, we are buying grains from the matrix. We are buying materials from the matrix. We are buying soil from the matrix, right? But the point is, we have to be in a place where we're not buying anything, where we're not selling anything, right? Where we are completely free of this figment of our imaginations called money that we attribute so much value to, but it takes away the love, takes away the goodness, takes away the passion, the compassion in our lives. And from there, we will create something truly beautiful. Again, I ask you, is there anything more important than creating the Garden of Eden? Is there anything more important than rejecting all of your object desire, rejecting all of your unnecessary needs and wants? Is there anything more important than funneling all your resources, all your energy to resource, to return to the source, to return nature back to what once was, so it can heal the nations, right? The herbs are for the healing of the nations, right? It's our job to re-herb the earth. Anytime we don't work towards the path of Eden, we're working against ourselves. We're working against our inner nature. So yeah, I think I should end it there because I'm prolonging it way too long. But yeah, look into those natural farming links that I've been sending you guys. Stay up to date with us. Send us some support. Those who have been supporting, thank you so much. Like, you're keeping us alive. You're keeping us fed. You're keeping us going. You are the fuel. So if anyone else wants to sponsor us, because right now we don't have like a good amount of Patreon followers or whatever it is, we don't have a consistent source of income. It's more like me once in a while saying to someone like, would you like to help out? And some people say no, some people say yes, and the money just comes at the right time, that kind of a thing. So if you want to help us, then help us, please, because I don't think there's something better to do, right? And if you want to inquire with us, like if your diet is really good and you're willing to drop all the bull crap and eat simple and eat healthy, and you want to come down and spend time with us and see if our community is right for you and all this kind of stuff, and you're interested in natural farming and all this kind of stuff, contact us, right? If you have any means of helping us, help us, right? Because we're trying to help you, right? All I want to do with my life is return to Eden and open the portal, open the gate so that many people can do this. And this is not just done with, Operation Lighthouse, but this is done with your everyday living, right? It's not just done with thoughts. It's not just done with concepts. It's about the conduct that you conduct yourself with every day. It's about how you treat people. It's about how you treat animals. It's about how you treat yourself, right? It's about the self-talk that's going on in your head. Are you keeping that in check? Or do you realize there's no one to keep anything in check, right? That this voice is a figment of your imagination, right? That true magic happens when there is no me, when there is no self. All problems come in with the self, right? With the self-centered identity and the self-centered existence, right? So again, Operation Lighthouse is not just about my movement, it's about your movement. How are you moving, right? Where are you going towards? Ask yourself, where are you in your life right now? What is it that you're doing with your life right now? And is that what you want? So when you ask these questions, naturally a solution will arise. You won't have to think about it so much. And honestly, you'll have to probably do nothing, because we're so caught up on doing something that we don't actually, make a meaningful, natural, intuitive, concise, simple action. So I leave you with that message. Let's reverse these deserted lands, both inside and without. Let's hydrate. Let's realize that the anatomy asks for this, that our anatomy asks for these atoms and electrons and whatever the scientific community wants to talk about. Stay electrified, okay? Stay hydrated. H3O2, there's nothing better than fruit water, right? Go on your fasts if you have to. Breathe deep, use that diaphragm. It's there for a reason, right? Observe your own thoughts. Realize that there is no observer. Keep going on, all right?